The Alien Rogue Incursion trailer recently released put Zula Hendricks, a veteran character from the comics, at the center. She's a fierce and confident woman who's faced and survived many threats, and always came out on top. In fact, Hendricks also teamed up with Amanda Ripley on multiple occasions to fight Weyland-Yutani. So, I thought this was the perfect time to explore the awesome and adventurous life of Zula Hendricks. Let's begin, shall we? Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin.
Zula Hendricks, signing off.
Early life. Zula Hendricks grew up in a tough neighborhood, where getting by often meant just making it through the day. At 18, during an encounter with Colonial Marines who were controlling a crowd in her area, Zula showed what she was made of. First, she snatched a handgun from a Marine's holster. When another Marine caught her and was about to shoot, the owner of the handgun intervened. Zula evaded capture for 18 hours before being confronted by the same Marine she'd stolen from. He saw potential in her, and suggested she join the Marines instead of continuing her life on the streets. Accepting the offer, she handed back his gun, holding it by the trigger guard. I personally like such stories, where people, especially the underprivileged, get a chance at a good life. Anyway, after joining the Marines and completing her training, Zula faced her first real test in combat. She was barely on the ground when an explosion knocked her off her feet, followed closely by another that threw her into the air. Severely wounded and pinned down, she found herself next to an unexploded shell. Moments later, it detonated, hitting her with the full force of the blast and leaving her gravely injured. Meeting Amanda Ripley. Zula faced yet another daunting road during her long and painful recovery after the combat injury. You see, it had left her with a severely damaged spine, which meant that she had to undergo numerous reconstructive surgeries and other medical treatments. Despite her efforts to recover, her fellow Marines and superiors shunned her because they saw her as a liability, who wasted extensive training on her first and only battle. This left her sidelined in non-combat roles, which was something that frustrated her. Her recovery took place under Dr. Emmy Yang's careful supervision at Tranquility Base on Luna. Despite the advanced care, Zula's recovery was far from easy. She fell into a depression, often withdrew from interaction, and spent long hours in bed. During this challenging time, she befriended Amanda Ripley, who was often busy with repair jobs around the base. Oh yes, Amanda was Ellen Ripley's daughter, and the central character from the video game Alien Isolation. Zula started joining Ripley on these jobs, picking up electronic engineering skills in the process. One incident had them working together to rescue 5 civilians trapped behind a malfunctioning airlock door at the Weyland-Yutani Tech Center. While Ripley coordinated with the engineer, Jeremiah Brodsky, to solve the issue, Zula explained that her back injury prevented her from providing more hands-on help. As you can see, she wasn't entirely combat ready, and would have been a danger to herself and the others on the field. Anyway, a miscommunication led Brodsky to almost trigger an explosive door opening. Thankfully, Ripley intervened just in time, severing the connection and preventing potential disaster. 2 days after the airlock incident, Hendricks, Ripley, Brodsky, and their supervisor Dimitri were summoned to a tribunal by Weyland-Yutani executives. The meeting was to decide if there should be criminal charges against Dimitri's company or the individuals involved. During the tribunal, Brodsky and Ripley gave conflicting accounts of what happened, which put the panel in a tough spot. They had to choose whose story to trust: Brodsky, a seasoned engineer, or Ripley, who lacked formal certification and had a sketchy past with lunar law enforcement. At this point, Zula stepped in to testify. Given the nod to speak, she backed Ripley's version of events. Brodsky, flustered and angry, tried to challenge her statement, but a tribunal member quickly reminded him that he was now accusing a Colonial Marine, which could escalate to a military court. Realizing he was overstepping, Brodsky backed down. Ultimately, the tribunal decided with Ripley and held Brodsky accountable for the mishap. He faced criminal charges and lost his job, while Ripley was promoted to repair technician. Grateful for Zula's support, Ripley offered to treat her to lunch, but Zula playfully pointed out that Ripley might not be in the best financial position to do that just yet, which was very true, given the fact that Ripley had a tough childhood after her mother got lost in deep space. Davis 1. Zula Hendricks was acting as the military liaison on a recovery mission when the commercial cargo hauler Europa, adrift in space, needed to be salvaged. She was aboard with a team of Weyland-Yutani corporate security drones. However, shortly after boarding, the mission kinda spiraled out of control, as several drones were attacked by a swarm of Xenomorphs. In the chaos, her compression suit was breached and she lost consciousness. When she regained consciousness, she found herself in the ship's medical bay. Davis 1, the lead synthetic, explained that she had been in hypersleep for nearly a month, while the remaining synthetics neutralized the Xenomorph threat and sanitized the ship. For safety, Davis had restrained her to prevent any rash actions that might cause her harm. Due to her prolonged inactivity, Zula was fitted with a shock brace to aid her recovery. To her astonishment, Davis 1 revealed he had overridden his programming, ignored his orders to return to Luna, and instead commandeered the Europa to pursue the origin of the Xenomorphs. Now, the fact that a synthetic had developed autonomy was a bit unsettling for Zula, but her perspective changed for the better when Davis shared that Weyland-Yutani was already aware of the Xenomorphs and had plans to capture them for experimentation. Recognizing the broader threat these creatures posed to humanity, and disillusioned by her employer's motives, Zula agreed to assist Davis 1 in his unexpected but crucial mission. Next, Zula and Davis got their hands on files hidden away in the Europa mainframe. Next, they took the ship to LV-4-4-4-0, a science station, which was mysteriously abandoned. Of course, they discovered a xenomorph here, a dead one, but there were no vitals for anyone else in the vicinity. She downloaded more data from the science station's mainframe and eventually bumped into a small xenohive, which was littered with the corpses of personnel. Somehow, Davis and Hendricks managed to evade the Xenos and fled LV-4-4-4-0 on the Europa. Oh, and they kinda caused the station's destruction with fire. Homesick and physically compromised, Zula Hendricks and Davis 1 were now on the run, having been officially marked as absent without leave. In response, Weyland-Yutani took control of the remaining security drones on board the ship, programming them to eliminate the duo and bring the ship back to Earth. Luckily, Davis 1, having already disabled his own remote control functions, remained unaffected by the company's commands. Nonetheless, they faced a rebellion from the other drones that they had to suppress by force. Amid this, Zula checked her terminal and found a message from Dr. Yang, her physician back on Luna. Dr. Yang was urging her to return, expressing that she missed Zula and wanted to continue her treatment to alleviate her ongoing pain. She reassured Zula that returning wouldn't negatively impact her record. Torn, Zula considered her options and ultimately decided to reach out to Dr. Yang without letting Davis know about the communication. While exploring the alien-ravaged Riot Abera fuel depot in search of any survivors, Hendricks and Davis stumbled upon Dr. Hollis, a medical officer and microbiologist who was taking refuge within the station. Recognizing her expertise and intimate knowledge of the Xenomorph threat, they quickly recruited her to their cause. However, when Hollis suggested they wait for backup, Zula and Davis were taken aback. She explained that a squad of heavily armed Colonial Marines was en route, likely sent by Weyland-Yutani to secure a Xenomorph specimen. It was then that Zula confessed to Davis that she had been secretly communicating with Dr. Yang back on Luna. Davis, visibly upset, recounted how he had to eliminate an entire squad of his own kind to maintain their secrecy. Zula defended her actions by expressing her dire need for medical attention. I mean, she basically referred to herself as physically compromised, but Davis was quick to remind her that their compromises extended beyond just the physical. Anyway, before they could talk more about the issue, the group inadvertently activated a containment event protocol. This led to Zula and Davis being cut off from Hollis, who found herself cornered by several facehuggers. Fighting for her life, Hollis managed to fend them off long enough for Zula to open the door. Davis then stepped in and eliminated the remaining facehuggers, thereby rescuing Hollis from a deadly fate. Perhaps getting facehugged is a fate worse than death. Before the Marines could escape with a Xenomorph specimen, Zula and Davis launched a missile at the Marine ship, completely destroying it and killing the crew inside. To ensure no traces were left, they overran the oxygen generators for an hour and then ignited the station's massive fuel reserves, creating a colossal explosion that obliterated everything. Afterward, Zula was found alone in her room, visibly distressed after killing fellow Marines. Davis came to see her and told her that he had switched off his emotional responses because the intensity was becoming unbearable for him. However, Zula was seeking more genuine interaction, and she urged him to reactivate his emotions, arguing that truly understanding humans meant experiencing everything, not just the convenient emotions. Davis obliged and sat beside her, sharing a moment of silent solidarity as they both processed the day's harrowing events. Now this is pretty interesting to me, the fact that synthetics can go rogue and feel emotions. I mean, it usually doesn't happen in stories, so I find it a bit fascinating, I suppose. Facing the Queen. Back on Europa, Hollis informs Zula and Davis that she's carrying a Xenomorph Queen embryo, which of course leaves everyone in shock. Determined to extract and study the embryo to possibly uncover a vulnerability in the alien species, Hollis undergoes surgery. The procedure is a success, and Davis quickly secures the Queen chestburster in a cryogenic chamber to prevent any immediate threats. This is one of the few incidents in the entire franchise where someone previously face-hugged was fixed after the xeno-embryo was removed from them. As Hollis recuperates in a quarantined area, feeling the effect of the surgery, Zula stops by to check on her. Their conversation is cut short when Davis interrupts with urgent news. The Queen is not only growing, but also shows signs of agitation in its frozen state. While they grapple with this complication, Zula spots a pirate ship closing in on the Europa. The pirates board the ship, aiming to seize the Queen. So yeah, insult to injury and then some. Anyway, Zula and Davis manage to fend off the invaders, but not without Davis sustaining serious injuries. Or should I say damages? With their options dwindling, Zula makes a desperate decision to release the young Queen on the pirates, which naturally ends in a brutal onslaught that decimates the invaders. On the way to Earth. By now, Hendricks was facing a lot of things. For instance, the Europa's deteriorating condition and the unleashed Queen, alongside her own worsening back injury. So Zula decided to head for Earth. She hoped Dr. Yang could shield the group from legal consequences, although Davis was skeptical about his chances as a synthetic, as he expected to be treated as mere hardware for analysis. As they neared Earth's moon, Zula managed to dodge Luna's air defenses by declaring they had a critical specimen on board. Meanwhile, Davis ensured the Queen would not pose a threat. He rigged a fuel cell to the creature and jettisoned it into space, where he remotely detonated it, effectively eliminating the Queen. However, the defensive systems on Luna reacted aggressively and didn't waste any time firing on Europa. The attack stopped only when Luna's operators detected another life form on the ship and chose to stand down. With no other options, Zula and Hollis had to leave Davis behind on the deteriorating Europa. They boarded escape pods, with Zula visibly distressed over abandoning her friend and comrade. She launched the escape pod with a heavy heart, as both the pod and the compromised ship continued their separate trajectories toward Earth. After a turbulent descent, Zula and Hollis' pod crash-landed on Earth, and to make things worse, they were closely followed by the wreck of the Europa. They lay undetected for hours until a military patrol spotted them. The soldiers quickly detained them, and even though Zula called for Dr. Yang, her requests fell on deaf ears. Zula was taken to the heavily guarded Spiro Dakota Military Hospital. There, she encountered a callous doctor who labeled her a junkie for her frequent use of pain medication to manage her spinal injury. Zula inquired about Hollis' condition, but the doctor refused to share any information. Throughout her stay, she was under constant surveillance and endured the taunts of two Marines who mocked her disability. Eventually, Zula was assigned a lawyer due to the potential of facing a court-martial. It was only then that she finally reunited with Dr. Yang, who assured her of steadfast support. To be honest, I was relieved to hear this. Anyway, during her time at the facility, Zula regularly attended therapy sessions with Dr. Yang, always mindful that their conversations might be monitored by the company. In a tape-recorded interview later on, Zula openly admitted to her actions on the Europa. Stuff like ignoring Luna's communications, going AWOL, quelling a mutiny, and being involved in the deaths of several Marines. When questioned about her regrets, she said that she was remorseful but stated that she would make the same decisions again if it meant saving human lives and humanity. Getting back to Davis. After undergoing back surgery, Zula was discharged from the hospital. Dr. Yang bid her farewell and wished her a journey of open possibilities. Although Zula felt a pang of sadness after leaving Yang, she kept her next steps to herself. Zula then discreetly connected with some underground networks that helped her acquire a boat stationed on the island. With a small team who admired her past exploits and necessary scuba gear, she sailed to the wreckage site of the Europa. Diving into the cold depths, Zula entered the sunken remnants of the ship where she found the inert body of Davis. Inside his mechanical skull, she carefully extracted his neural chip, hopeful about reactivating her friend's consciousness. Back on dry land, still healing from her physical and psychological scars, Zula secured a position at the V-22 facility on Jericho 3. There, she trained recruits for the Colony Protection Force, funding her continued efforts to thwart Weyland-Yutani's unethical experiments with xenomorphs. She installed Davis' neural chip into a personal AI assistant, aka PAIA, which allowed him to operate remotely and help manage the facility's systems. During her tenure, Zula was plagued by severe nightmares, her subconscious haunted by alien horrors and the loss of her crew. These dreams often manifested as a terrifying skeletal xenomorph that Zula called the Bone Alien. Her relationship with the CPF trainees was complex and strained. In a training session, a combat robot, programmed to simulate extraterrestrial threats, suddenly attacked her. Zula somehow managed to deactivate it before any fatal harm could be done. Later, she discovered that one of her trainees had tampered with the robot's programming as a misguided joke, not intending any real danger. reunion with Amanda, and prep for a last stand. Following this on Jericho 3, Zula resolved to get back to combating the Xenomorph problem. Her resolve strengthened by the ordeal, and despite the challenges, her trainees voiced their continued support and commitment to the training program, ready to face whatever threats lay ahead together. In 2140, Zula successfully tracked down her longtime ally, Amanda Ripley, who was in the middle of a quiet hike in the countryside. Zula brought Amanda back to her suburban apartment, where she introduced her to Davis, now operating with a personal AI assistant. Zula reveals to Amanda that despite their past efforts to thwart them, Weyland-Yutani has secured Xenomorph specimens to develop bioweapons. Determined to stop them, Zula persuaded Amanda to join her in this final stand against the corporation. Amanda infiltrated a Weyland-Yutani tower using Davis' digital skill set to pinpoint the location of the weapons testing site. However, she quickly found herself up against advanced corporate security drones named Franklin. Fortunately, Zula swooped in with her ship and launched a missile at the tower to create a diversion. This allowed Amanda to leap to safety, though she narrowly escaped a bullet tainted with Xenomorph blood. Using the launch of the colonist ship Gaspar as a disguise, Zula's ship slipped away undetected. They set course directly for the research facility, entering hypersleep for the journey. Upon waking, Zula was uneasy to discover the Gaspar ominously floating nearby. Davis scans showed no life signs aboard, and its manifest had been wiped clean, now listed merely as a resupply vessel. Armed and cautious, Amanda, Zula, and Davis boarded the deserted Gaspar. They donned pressure suits to explore the ghostly ship. Their search was abruptly interrupted by a Franklin drone carrying a mysterious crate. As it tried to flee and alert others, Amanda tackled it, leading to a fierce struggle that cracked her helmet. Zula intervened just in time, neutralizing the drone with precise shots. The duo then discovered that the colonists of the Gaspar were missing, possibly relocated back onto the ship, which was being maneuvered into a low orbit around a nearby planet. Further investigation revealed that the site was equipped with a nuclear failsafe. Resolving to take control of the bomb from the outside, Amanda attempted to rewire its systems with Davis' chip. They were soon ambushed by synthetics, which led to a skirmish that saw Zula wounded and expelled into space, with Amanda close behind. Floating helplessly, Zula called out for Davis, fearing he was still trapped within the bomb system, but received no response. After a descent into the moon's atmosphere, Amanda and Zula, thanks to Amanda, survived their fall from space unscathed. They scoured the remnants of the Gaspar, but found little of use, prompting them to explore the strange new environment. While surveying the area, they rescued Alec Brand, a colonist fleeing from two pursuing Xenomorphs. In fact, they also encountered two non-hostile, bulletproof Franklins, and decided to set up a temporary camp as night fell. It was then that they received a surprising communication from Davis, through a microtransmitter hidden in Zula's hair clip. Davis informed them that the moon was actually a breeding ground for Xenomorphs, intended for weapon testing, with the colonists unwittingly tagged for data collection and to attract more Xenomorphs. With a new mission in mind, Zula and Amanda ventured deeper into the moon's jungle, searching for any signs of tagged colonists. Suddenly, Alec Brand ambushed them. Initially hostile, he quickly joined forces with the duo after they promised him a way off the moon. Alec revealed he was one of the tagged colonists, which Amanda noted could be crucial evidence in their fight against the corporation. Davis then updated them with a new plan. He was preparing to send all his data to their ship, the Celestial, and would meet them at an extraction point. He intended to use the ship to escape, but also set off a nuclear detonation that would destroy the facility and all evidence of the bioweapons program, effectively wiping the slate clean. Amanda and Zula held back a surge of Xenomorphs, while Alec Brand made a break for the Celestial, which had just touched down. Brand secured himself inside, and he buckled up as the ship prepared for a rapid departure. Meanwhile, the Franklins were closing in on Davis, and they were trying to sever his connection to the nuclear device he was guarding. With the situation growing dire, Davis informed the team he had no choice but to trigger the explosion, as the Celestial rocketed away, leaving Amanda and Zula stranded. Davis activated the nuclear device. The resulting blast obliterated the facility and cleared the atmosphere of the Xenomorph threat. Amidst the chaos, Amanda quickly deployed Zula's hex shelter, and the two huddled together, bracing for the shockwave. Amanda and Zula emerged unscathed from the shelter, only to find themselves still haunted by a few remaining Xenomorphs. Their situation seemed grim until Davis, having managed to transfer his AI consciousness to another ship, swooped in to rescue them. He sedated the pair, ensuring their safety as he piloted them back to Earth. Once they recovered from their ordeal, the explosive evidence they brought back was enough to expose the Weyland-Yutani Corporation's dark ventures. The corporation faced hefty fines for their human rights violations and scrambled to mitigate the damage through political maneuvering and costly lobbying. After the nuclear blast shattered the moon, its debris fell to the planet's atmosphere, which posed a new threat. Weyland-Yutani, ever opportunistic, tried to capitalize on the catastrophe by securing ownership of the planet to harvest bacterial Xenomorph samples from the meteorites. Amanda and Zula, however, were determined to prevent further exploitation, and coordinated a covert mission with a detachment of Colonial Marines to eradicate any remaining Xenomorphs on the planet. They set up their operation at USCM Forward Operating Base alongside 30 Marines. Alec Brand, now enlisted as a Marine and previously misled into believing Ripley and Hendricks had perished, was briefed on the operation by Lena Bowden and transported by Davis to the reunion site. After a heartfelt reunion, Amanda and Zula outlined the mission's objectives to Alec, and together they led the platoon to the planet's surface. By daybreak, they had established a camp, amidst growing suspicion that Weyland-Yutani might be manipulating the Xenomorphs. Davis dismissed these concerns and explained that the corporation had instead co-opted military protocols to serve its own ends. Sensing Brand's internal conflict, which was pretty much like her own past dilemma, Zula emphasized with his struggle. So that was all about Zula Hendricks. We'll keep you updated when we learn more about the game. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.